Hello and welcome to the Happiness Is podcast with me, your host, Bruce Aitchison from Happiness Is Egg-Shaped. And today I am joined by a guest on the other side of this egg-shaped planet. And I am delighted that he's made some time to have a chat to me. When we started talking about the podcast and I made that list, there was a lot of big names on it, names at the forefront of things that happen in World Rugby. And this guy was also on it, not known to many of you, but known to me because I love his story. He's a man from Scotland who had a crack at rugby here and decided, you know what, I'm going to go somewhere else. He's been to Australia and played, he came back, and he's now in a bit of the country in New Zealand that I absolutely love. He's in the Waikato. I'm going to get misty-eyed here and I'm going to start telling you stories about when I was a lad and I played in Hamilton. This guy is carving it up at NPC level, which is what it was called when I was a lad, and I'm sticking to NPC. He's in a bit of a lockdown at the moment because New Zealand are a little bit twitchy about some cases that have just perked up. So he's pleased to speak to somebody and he's landed with me. So without any further ado, I'm bringing in the one and the only Mr. Hamilton Burr. Hello, sir.
Hello, slightly flattering that introduction there, but thank you.
No, absolutely. And I love the story. So you're repping your Hautapu kit. So give a shout out to the club. Why are you at Hautapu?
I don't know what I'm at Hautap actually. It was kind of one of those things, kind of sent my CV across a lot of different rugby clubs in the area and around New Zealand, and they got back in touch and did a little bit of research and thought, I'll go somewhere that no one else really has been. So kind of headed across this direction, got in touch with the club, and they sorted everything else from there. But it turns out a guy that used to play up in Aberdeen, once I said I was going to Hautap, got in touch, guy Greg Ryan. He got in touch. So he's actually got a bit of a legacy from living here, and his uncle Kev Wyness has actually got a bit of a legacy from just visiting across here. So they're both well known at Hautap. So wasn't the first Scottish person here, but still I had to contain the legacy that they left behind from it. So yeah.
I hope you didn't put that on the CV because they probably would have rejected you straight up. Greg Ryan and Kev Wyness are quite a double act.
Yeah, 100%. They're definitely known for their exploits off the rugby pitch as opposed to him on the rugby pitch. Big history behind that bit.
Yeah, I know them both well. Rugby is a village after all. So Hautapu, and there's some pretty decent players are coming out of Hautapu, and one of them's just come back for a bit of a game in the back row.
Yeah, old Hunger or Liam Messon, he's popped back now. So it's real. I think it's real cool to see All Blacks or past All Blacks come back and still play club rugby. I think it's just phenomenal to see. Even then, there's a guy playing for Marist who's got an unbelievable number of caps as well, and they'll pop back down. And Atimoli was playing Division 1 rugby this year because his team got relegated for the playoffs. So they're all around the place. And even at Hautap, there's a lot of young Super Rugby players will come back playing, even experience. So guys like Lachlan McConnell, Simon Parker, Ollie Norris. There's a heap of them that all go up. Bradley Slater plays the Chiefs on a regular basis. There's a lot of very good players kind of floating about club rugby and in Hamilton, so it's quite a good standard of rugby, to be honest.
Yeah, it is a good standard of rugby. And being in Scotland, and you played professional rugby, so you've rubbed shoulders with internationals, but there's still an aura about an All Black, isn't there? I mean, Liam Messam is just an awesome, so highly respected player. What's it like being with somebody like that?
I'm not going to rub him up too much because it's kind of my teammate, so in case this gets out. But no, he's even him, like him, Adam Thompson. He's kind of our line-out coach at the moment at Waikato. Both real well-known All Blacks, and just you just learn something off them all the time. Be it tech stuff, which they pick up anyway, just playing alongside them, or it's more just about how they go about the business. Like especially Adam last year, his off-field behaviours are just unbelievably professional. Liam, I mean, he's 37 and still like runs his carcass around the place. He looks after his body to no avail, and he knows exactly what's right for his body, and he'll do it, and he'll make sure he's doing it right. So they're both just unbelievable blokes, and I think one thing having met other All Blacks as well is they always put the team first. I think was like fortunate enough to play with David McKenzie and Anton last year, and they both like out and out put Waikato first. I think they had the All Blacks series play afterwards, but for the 2 weeks they were with us, it was all Waikato. There was no other kind of focus around it. They weren't kind of too big for their boots there, and got stuck in elbows deep and got involved in every part of the team, which is kind of what you want to see in all regards.
It must just be awesome. I'm still a wee boy at heart, so hearing those names, I'm massively jealous. One of the things you mentioned there, and in the reading that I've done about you, believe it or not, I do some research. You mentioned learning quite a lot.
Yeah.
Is that something that you've picked up in New Zealand? Is that something you've always done? Who is it that role modeled that for you?
Probably, I think, it sounds very corny here, but probably my parents, to be honest. I think parents, a bit of myself. I think I came quite late to rugby, so I didn't start playing until I was 13 or so, pretty much secondary school. I think I played one micro tournament when I was in primary 7 down in Mackay, or a couple. I think we put up Mackay Academy, which we actually won the Shield there, believe it or not. And then I think we played one out in Bankery, the D-side tournament, which we definitely did not win. I think we lost that convincingly. So played too many tournaments. Like, oh, this is quite cool. So played it alongside football, and then just kind of grew a love of it. So I kind of had to learn. Like there was you kind of have to learn from somewhere. So I was already kind of behind players, kind of forced myself to learn. And I even remember coming up through school, I think I was told at one point I was too slow to be a back row. So kind of told them politely to go somewhere else, and then kind of worked on my speed all summer and kind of just constantly learning, trying to develop my game in different ways. I think even now, I think I've still got a list of things I want to be better at as a back row and a second row. So I think even now, it's like, especially like Adam Thompson and Liam there, and even guys who have played a lot of minutes of pretty decent rugby like Mitch Jacobson, who I play with. There's a lot to learn off of. So it's just about kind of picking their brains about what they do and trying to get better each session. So yeah, like it's just a constant kind of learning experience on the pitch. There's not one time you step away and think, oh, I didn't learn anything today. So,
and is that when it started so early, was that with the ambition that I'm going to be a professional, or was it just I wanted to be better?
I think I still want to be better. I think most upset I've been with non-selections when I didn't make the under-15 Aberdeen Hurricanes. I think that's the most upset I've ever been. So I think it's kind of been probably stemmed a bit from that in terms of I've always wanted to make like the next step. So I think I'm not satisfied until I've kind of made that jump and kind of reached my goal. But I think as soon as I kind of reached a goal, like I want to kind of hit the next thing. It kind of progress. It's kind of like a never-ending journey. It's not I've made it, feet up, relax now. It's kind of put the foot down and try to develop a bit more, try catch the guys that are in front of you. So yeah, it's kind of never-ending cycle of kind of trying to learn and try to pick up something new or pick someone else's brain or go for their coffee with them. So yeah, it's not so bad.
So it sounds like you've got different types of motivation, not being selected or being told you're not fast enough, right? I'm going to go and work at that. But it also sounds like you've just got I want to get better. Are you able to look with some satisfaction at some of the things that you've done, or are you still looking forward and there will be another time to reflect?
Good question. A bit of both, to be honest. I think I'm someone that I'm pretty stubborn. So if someone says I can't do something, I'll generally go do it to get lost. So there's that aspect. But I think I'm quite a reflective person anyway. So I do look back at things and think that was a job well done. But I don't sit there and think that was unreal and just sit and reflect. I'll think that was really well done and kind of move on and look to the next thing. I think you kind of have to sit there and kind of enjoy the moment. I think I probably learned that the most kind of in New Zealand, that there's no point kind of being too focused on what's ahead. Just kind of enjoy the here and now and celebrate the victories and then start looking forward after that. Then review it however you need to. Take your lessons from whatever it was, be it club rugby or during training or playing at NBC, and they kind of move on from there. And yeah, it's important to reflect and say that's a job well done, but there's always learnings to take from it and to kind of move on from there. And I think New Zealand's kind of taught that the best way, to be honest. So pretty chilled out over here.
And you've come quite a long way from that position you were in Aberdeen. Now, lots of people might not think there's a lot of rugby in Aberdeen, but people like us who are in and around know that there's a lot of rugby in Aberdeen, and it maybe doesn't get highlighted as much as certainly guys like Kev Wyness would want it to. Where was your role models or inspirations in and around Aberdeen for rugby?
So I started rugby through, it was like an after-school taster club. So I went up to local high school, Hazelhead Academy. Went up there for a taster session. I went for 4 weeks, and there was a guy, Colin Phillips, that was running it and was a development officer. And CP used to be, he was actually my academy manager or coach towards the end. He had like short hair, it was like real formal, but back when he was in DO, he had a long ass mullet, short, stocky winger. I actually remember when I was there, I was like doing a little bit of reading about rugby when I was that age, and I actually asked him if he was a prop, so he's slightly offended by that on reflection. so I kind of looked at an after-school session and gave it a try because I have an uncle in my family that played rugby, but my parents didn't play, my grandparents didn't play, so just thought I'll give it a shot, see what it's like. Watched a bit of the TV. I think went to one game of Murrayfield with my uncle, and I'll give it a little shot. Tried it and really enjoyed the taster sessions. The next step was to go to the Aberdeen Wanderers, so a small little club in Aberdeen. I think Jason White's from there, so it's got a bit of pedigree, but tiny little club, only a couple hundred youth players and a tiny little adult section. So just kind of started playing there and loved it. Just loved playing the game, to be honest, and making new friends and enjoying it. But I even remember back then, like Aberdeen Wanderers senior section, I think the highest level we've been to is Cali Division 1, so not at a high level, but I still looked up to the seniors and kind of wanted to be that. So I think just kind of trained away, thinking one day I'll play for Aberdeen Wanderers, and think that would be like unreal to play for Wanderers first. And yeah, just kind of ticked away. And I think my dad's always been a big driver to kind of enjoy what I was doing. And he always said you only get out what you put in, so kind of put 100% into it and kind of see what came of it. Really didn't really focus too far ahead. Let's just try and make Aberdeen Wanderers first team.
I absolutely love that. Your ambition was the club first 15, because there won't be many kids coming into the game where that's what they want to do. It will be professional contract, play for Scotland, play for the British Lions in this little time where it's been advertised. So I love to hear that you wanted to play in the club. So the club, how much do you still have to do with the club? Do you get messages from them? Are you keeping an eye on their social media?
Yeah. No, I follow them all through social media. I think they still reach out now and again and have a chat or mention me in social media in some way or say congratulations. But I think they're a small club that's growing, and I think it's always good to see more people taking it up in Aberdeen, because Aberdeen's football dominated. Even though there's a big kind of or a growing rugby base, it's still pretty small. There's no like kind of development works. There's people just coming to the club and trying it. So it's good to see rugby's growing. But like Wanderers definitely a healthy club, and I want so much to thank for just getting me into rugby and enjoying it in every way possible. And I think even then, I think my first senior experiences of rugby were all playing for Wanderers when I was probably a bit young. I think 16, 17, but I just loved every second. I think my first game was against Murray away. I was off school for the weekend, and they said, "Do you want a game?" Like, yeah. So brought my boots and kind of jumped in and played against some men. And I remember, that was a huge step up rugby wise. I was like, that was ridiculous. Playing against grown men, but then enjoyed it. And then I think the next pre-season I played against Mackie FPs. I was about 17, and I mucked up a older player a bit too much. It was probably a bit chirpy for my age, and he certainly gave me a shoeing after that. So I think you just learn so much from just playing adult rugby as a young fella. I think I loved it. Like I loved the Aberdeen Wanderers, and then kind of moved on from there. So I loved every second of it, to be honest.
And was that just playing for fun and because it was the next thing to do?
Yeah, I think
it wasn't part of a grand plan.
No, it wasn't. Like I think everyone dreams to either play pro rugby or national rugby. I think that's every person that, even if you're still playing adult rugby at age 43 for I'm not going to disrespect any clubs here, but for a Cali Division 4 side, so a tiny little club in Aberdeen, you still aspire to playing for Scotland. So I think, or for a pro contract. So I think it's there, but you just have to kind of enjoy that next step up. And for me, that was like playing for Aberdeen Wanderers, or playing for next step up would be Aberdeen Grammar, and kind of work my way up the tree that way. So I think you just kind of got to enjoy the journey more than anything. So enjoying the little steps and the little victories. So yeah.
So not coming from a necessarily a rugby family, when you then were asked to go and do the next thing, how did they support? Were they just, go for it, if you're happy, we're happy?
Yeah, no, they've always been always very supportive. I've never had never a bad thing to say around that. I think even I went to school when I was 16, got a scholarship to go to Gornston. So again, both were very supportive for me to go do it, and no holds barred. They just kind of asked if I was sure it's what I wanted, and as soon as I said yes, and go for it. And then some were coming to New Zealand, like even though I haven't seen them since April 2019, they're both very supportive of what both me and my partner are doing over here, and kind of whatever our next steps will be. Full support. I know I've got the full support, so it's great to be in a family environment like that. So yeah, they've always kind of pushed me to give it a crack and see what happens. Really, it's the worst that can happen.
You've never been scared to. I hate the phrase, but you've never been scared to get out your comfort zone at 16. I mean that must have been like going to another universe.
Oh yeah, I think I was just at state school in Aberdeen at Hazelhead Academy, as I said. I think there's only 3 of us that played rugby at the whole school, so there wasn't many of us at all. And then, just all of a sudden, I was actually through the fire service, got a scholarship, so moved up there for 2 years, and yeah, loved it. Absolutely loved it. I think it was just something new to try, and loved every second of it. So yeah, I think I just love experiencing new people and new experiences. So it's just kind of right up my alley.
And rugby's given you that chance. If you were asked to go back to that high school and give a talk, it sounds like they wouldn't care that you played for Waikato, because it wouldn't really register with them. So what would be your theme to kids now about your life experience so far?
Only 25. I'm not that old yet. There's a life experience.
You've had plenty.
Yeah, I'll probably suck around and just kind of don't say no to opportunities. I think as soon as you got an opportunity, just say yes to it. I mean, you just got to think what is the worst that could possibly happen. I think if you think by the worst case scenario, it's not actually that bad in the grand scheme of things. So I think it's just kind of throwing yourself in the deep end, and you'll very rarely drown. And yeah, there's always ways to kind of save yourself. So just throw yourself in there and kind of go for it. Like, there's no point saying no to something. And I always think about, if I was to sit back in this situation in 10 years' time, would I regret not doing it? I think that's always, and coming out to New Zealand as well, I think that was kind of the last question my dad asked was, if you asked yourself in 10 years' time, do you want to come out to New Zealand? And I said, actually, no, I'm going to sit around here, static. He says, would you regret it? And I think the only answer to that question for me would be yes. So that's kind of why I jumped at it. So I always kind of say yes to scenarios if you know down your gut's the right thing to do. So yeah, that's kind of a long-winded way to say what I would say.
I think there's lots of messages in there. I think you're an amazing role model. As you're getting towards the end of school, people tend to be, right, what university am I going to? What course am I going to do? Maybe what does sport have alongside that? What processes were you going through as you're approaching the end of school?
Plan A was to go to university, but that went horribly wrong. So plan B was not to go to university. So I think so I got halfway through finished year 12, kind of failed all my exams. And then I was like, right, maybe university is not potentially the first option here, because I think it meant I had what you'd say a lot of exams in my final year. So started looking at gap year options, because I didn't really know what I wanted to do at university. Instead of just kind of going to uni for the sake of going to uni, I thought I'll go take a gap year somewhere. So kind of applied to a school in Melbourne, Scotch College. So it's a big... I only found out once I got there, actually, this is how much research I did, kind of found out that there's hardly any rugby union played in Melbourne. It's all Aussie rules. So I always just played Aussie rules for a year. But then, yeah, so I applied to school through contacts of the school, blah, 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 got in touch, sorted all that out. So kind of I was then set on going to Australia. So I was like, oh, sweet. So kind of finished my school year, didn't think too much about it. Failed all my exams that year again. So the university was definitely off the cards. So yeah, went off to Australia, spent a year there. Coached quite a lot because I was at the school, so I was involved with like PE lessons, just general gap shooting at the school. So mucked around quite a lot, believe it or not. We had quite a lax gap system, so I had every evening off, and you can imagine I get to Melbourne every evening. And then so I didn't arrived in August, and the rugby season didn't start till when was it? March. So I had a bit of waiting around to do before I started. So I kind of twiddled my thumbs for 6 months, well, a few months, and then trialled with the Melbourne Rebels under 20s in about November's time. Managed to get dropped from that after the first trial, actually, so that was a great start. And then got called up a week later. Someone else dropped out, so I was the guy that made the coffee for the guy that made the teas. Got called up a week later as this tiny little, I think I was 95 kilos at the time as a forward, and Melbourne's got a big Polynesian community. It's the size of some of these forwards was honestly like men, and in the gym with them, and they were pushing 10. I can see pushed to NBC level now, and I was kind of loading up the bar with 2 5-kilo plates and hoping. So yeah, it was bit of a baptism of fire, to be honest. And I've never trained at that level. So yeah, got stuck into it. Did the first 3 weeks, managed to survive in Australian summer pre-season, which was horrific, and then had the Christmas break. We came back and got stuck into it, and we had a couple of full contact sessions against the actual Rebels. So as much as the Rebels aren't too good, yeah, I think as an 18-year-old, I think I was bricking it, to say the least. So yeah, it was another real deep end moment, and played a little tournament with them. Then just got stuck into club rugby, so I just played Colts, so under 20s rugby there. Loved it, loved every second. It's exactly what Colts rugby is. It was you played the Saturday, went out Saturday night, went out Tuesday night, went out Thursday night, and just loved every second of being with the boys, and it was great fun. Absolutely loved playing under 20s rugby, and kind of we trained hard, but played really hard. So no, it was real good. Loved it, and I got a taste of playing seconds club rugby there. When for me at the time that was massive. The bigger men got even bigger, and yeah, just loved it, and really relished the chance to kind of play for my club with that, or Melbourne Harlequins, relished that chance to play for them there, and yeah, kind of moved on from there. And I think a Rebels coach was actually saying in the chat to him, because I did a coaching course at the end of the year, said, "Oh, we were actually going to cut you again after your first week training. You were that bad." So yeah, I managed to survive. So kind of hanging there by my claws. But now he's the only fella, Nick Henderson, who's got a couple of Wallabies caps as well. So yeah, he probably had a bit of an influence for me to kind of continue rugby. He said, "You're probably got something there, so you need to develop it, but you're certainly coachable and got a bit of resilience behind you." So yeah, just crack on. So got a bit to owe to him as well, to be honest.
The guy that made the tea must have loved the coffee you were making.
Oh, must have loved it. Must have loved it when he wasn't there anymore, and I've kind of taken over. So
I love that phrase. That is an absolute belter. And I can see that you've done a coaching course. I get the feeling you've mentioned learning a lot. You love it. You're obviously a passionate guy about what you do.
Yeah.
Is coaching something in the far off distance that you would like to do?
Yeah, I'll do quite a bit of coaching now. So did an HND in coaching back home at college, at two colleges actually. North East Scotland College, did my HNC, then did my HND down at New College Lanarkshire. So when I was with the academy down there, so finished that, and yeah, just been enthralled with coaching ever since. Coached a lot with Stirling County when I was there. Heaps actually, ended up doing a bit of development work with them, and then over here done a fair bit of coach education and coached a couple of teams as well. So no, I absolutely love coaching. I think even though it's still rugby based, it's a bit of a release from rugby for me, believe it or not. I think I love kind of working with people and seeing them get better and develop. So I think it's real cool. I think for playing as well, it helps a lot. So yeah, no, I love it. Absolutely love it.
So now as a player, are you looking at the game differently?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's especially kind of within environments, you always think about how you would potentially do it better, or how it can be improved. And if it's a good job, it's a real good job. You kind of steal ideas. Even though you shouldn't copy and paste things, because it doesn't really work for all teams. You do kind of pick up things you quite like the idea of and kind of run with them yourself. So no, I certainly love it. You can ask other guys what they think of certain people, and I think everyone here is actually quite open, so you can have a chat about. I've been lucky enough on my level 3 course last year. Warren Gatlin came in and spoke and stuff, so to be exposed to kind of coaches of that caliber and kind of their thought process is quite cool. So yeah.
And you mentioned learning again, and I can just see it. I'm still not sure you're only 25. The way you're talking and the view you've got, but that comes from this experience that you've got now. No, it sounds like so far we've spoken about, and you've mentioned you've loved this and you did that and you got involved, but there's been some bumps along the way. It sounds like so far, any time you've spoken about, I got cut from that or I missed out on that, you've bounced back pretty quickly and with lots of enthusiasm. But the reason you ended up in New Zealand was you kind of felt you I don't know, maybe hit a glass ceiling here. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I think that's probably a good way to describe it. I think I finished my year with Glasgow and kind of told there was nothing waiting for me, and I'd kind of outgrown what the academy could provide. So it was a case of waiting for a pro contract to come up. So put a year at club, and as much as I love Stirling, it wasn't going to provide me a platform to boost up. So I thought, right, I don't want to kind of end it on that note. I want to go have a crack somewhere else, and if that doesn't work out, then I can say I've kind of tried all my avenues, and I can call it a day. So yeah, it wasn't easy kind of being cut from the academy, but the brutality of pro sport is, you're not likely to get a pro contract at the end of the day. I think there's a lot of guys I played with that were in the academy, don't make it, and I think the way I describe young players as well is at the end of the day, it's a matter of someone's opinion of you. Like, it's not, that's the thing about our sport, is someone can have one opinion of you and someone can have a completely different opinion. So yeah, just kind of called it a day and thought we'll try somewhere new and head across here. And yeah, even Scotland 20s level, got cut after the first camp by my academy manager 2 years later. So it's the opinion of you at the time. So yeah, it's kind of about not dwelling on it. If you dwell on it, then you're just kind of making an excuse, or not an excuse, you're kind of being the victim of it. So may as well just run with it and get better and tell them to get lost and that you were right in the first place. So again, it comes back to being a bit stubborn, a bit kind of resilient to all.
And I'm not sure if it's stubborn. I think resilient I get, but that's quite a mature perspective, I would have said. There will be a lot of players who are doing things because they want that person's opinion to be positive of them. So I'm trying to figure, was it just about you? So I'm going to be the best that I can be. If that's not good enough for them, then I'll go somewhere maybe where I'm appreciated. Would that be?
I think I've probably learned to care less over here in terms of what kind of coaches think about me, because I think I do believe I took it quite personal when I was a bit younger. I think that just comes with getting older. It just comes with age. But I think it's always been, I want to be better, and you want to be part of a team, you want to be giving it your all. And if you're not involved with it, then it's kind of probably time to move on and try to find somewhere you are appreciated, or not appreciated, that's not the word, kind of valued, that you can feel you can add something to the team. So yeah, just, and again, the brutality of pro sport is there might be someone above you that is better, and they might prefer them. So it's not in your control, it's not in your hands in any way. So you just kind of got to hope when you perform at your best, and that's good enough for you to get a crack at the starting jersey, or within the squad, or within the slightly extended squad. So, but yeah, it's kind of, I don't know if
you've been in Kiwi a long time, because you started that off with nah. Yeah, you are.
You start over here, because I think I've been working on a farm heaps, and they say it, and I actually walk away confused with what I'm meant to be doing half the time. So, you alright,
mate? I love that. So I'm interested in the parents' impact on that, because there will be a lot of rugby kids in academies. At the moment, it's boys, because there's not too many girls in an academy type structure. It's beginning to happen now. But there will be a lot of kids in an academy who have a parent or parents who know the system, who were involved in rugby, and were probably comparing you to somebody else, and through those rose-tinted specs thought, no, my boy's better than them. Was it quite good having parents that maybe didn't know a huge amount about it and they just supported you?
Yeah, 100%. I think they were always, I think even when I was up at Gornston, I think I would come down on Saturday, go down to Cali training in Cooper on the Sunday. So they would drive me down, drive me back up, and I'd get the train back up to Elgin on the Sunday night for school Monday. So yeah, they've always been real supportive, and I think it is good in a way. I think my dad actually ended up coaching rugby and ended up coaching Wanderers seniors for someone that's never played before. I ended up getting real involved, and ended up doing a bit of coach ed as well. So I don't know how on earth he's done that, but he just got real involved and ended up learning heaps. But he never said he knew more, or he never kind of imposed what he thought. If there was something I was doing wrong as a person, he would speak to me about it. But he would never challenge my playing, or kind of any of that kind of stuff. And he would just kind of ask how I felt about it, and we'd talk about it, because of course he's got experience as well. I'm not saying that I know it all, shut dad. We kind of talk it out, and just kind of have an open conversation, as opposed to getting told things, because I think getting told things isn't really the way to do it, and most people kind of put up a wall and tell you to get lost and tell them to do things. So we had open conversations, and it was a very open kind of relationship. He kind of was pretty relaxed, and just said, as long as you kind of try your hardest, and then everyone will be pretty happy, you'll be happy, and we'll both be quite happy as well. So yeah.
So you then start to look further afield, and obviously you find yourself in Waikato now. I think I read that Dave Rennie gave you a bit of advice on where to go and what to do next.
Yep. So I spoke to Rennes probably the November before I was going to come out, and I had to kind of make a decision which club I was going to come to. So I had a couple in Christchurch. I only had one here, Howtap, and then a couple in Auckland. So kind of had a chat to him. I think his parting words were, I just wasn't a good enough attacker. And that's why I kind of got dropped, or not dropped, but didn't get re-signed with the academy or with Glasgow. So I thought, right. And he goes around to develop my attack, and he said, Auckland's a lot of huge people running at huge people. There's not much. It's free flowing. Like New Zealand is quite running rugby, but he says in terms of what you need to develop, probably not, because it gets quite just one up running. Go to Christchurch, and he says it's not too dissimilar to Northern Hemisphere. It's more open, but it's a lot of set piece kind of stuff and a lot more direct. And he said Waikato's probably got a decent enough blend, whereas it's got some very free flowing rugby, but it's also quite physical, and it's probably the way to describe it. It's physical rugby at club here, but it's very open rugby. So kind of made my decision based on that and came here. And I think the other part of the decision was not to make it easier for myself, but Auckland's got a population of 1 million for 2 NPC teams, or maybe 3 if you count counties. So a lot of the chances there probably weren't as much. And North Harbour and counties are actually different regions to Auckland, so I'd had to jump regions. And then Christchurch, they get guys in the academy very young and combined with Tasman as an academy. So it's kind of jump into a slot there would be very difficult unless you played absolutely out your skin, outstandingly. So I thought, right, Waikato is probably the best shout. He'll select through club rugby as well. So came here, started playing away, played a pre-season game down in Rotorua, which is where all the geothermal stuff is in New Zealand. So played right next to a thermal spring, which is pumping out sulphur. And that was like week 1 New Zealand. I think it was about 25 degrees, like pumping out sulphur. And like me and this Irish guy was about throwing up at the side of the pitch. It absolutely stunk. That was the club called, it's actually the abbreviated version of the club. They're called Whaka Wira Wira. And there's another like 20 letters after that name. I can't pronounce it. We deserve to say it. And unbelievable club, like huge tradition around it. And I think they unfortunately lost 2 people in a car crash that week, or had an accident. And in the clubhouse after the game, I think they're a very Maori-based club, and they had a huge haka and a pofuri as well, which is like a Maori kind of hymn or song. So that was like straight after game 1. And honestly, that experience in New Zealand was like something completely different. And then so we kind of experienced New Zealand rugby straight away. Played a couple of pre-seasons, and then game 2 here, I managed to sublux my shoulder, so I was out for the next 9 weeks. So I didn't play only played the second round of club rugby, and kind of nagged my way into the Waikato development team. And then really nagged my way in, kind of got my way in there, and kind of performed a lot of training. We got a shot at a pre-season game against Hawke's Bay, and then got a second shot, and someone got injured, and then kind of made my debut for Canton right after that. So it's kind of by coincidence and kind of nagging people at the same time. So kind of thankful for that, to be honest. Really thankful for Waikato, for everything.
You've got an amazing persistence about your personality. Some of the stuff you described there, I went to New Zealand, telling you this off screen. I went to New Zealand when I was 19 and played for Te Rapa in Hamilton, and learned so much about the game, but also a culture I knew nothing really about other than watching the All Blacks on TV. So you arrive, and there's then a haka, and there's the tradition that goes with it. And club rugby in New Zealand is the same as it is everywhere, but it then has cultural, regional traits to it. Yeah. At any point when you first arrived, were you pinching yourself going, I can't believe I'm here, or this is so different, or were you quite relaxed about it?
I think culture-wise, everyone here is honestly horizontal about getting things done. So even when I arrived, it was they didn't have a job for me yet. So it was like rocked up, and they're like, "Oh, we don't have anything for you yet, pretty much." They said they'll get everything organised. I stayed at an old fella and his partner, or Jake and Jude Mullen, who are like fantastic people, absolute love them to bits. So we're like a surrogate grandparents over here. So stayed at theirs for a couple of weeks, and he honestly drove me around, got me a bank account, got me a phone. Like organised a flat for me to go stay with another bunch of lads. Then organised me to go get a car with another old fella. And then he said, "Oh, finally got a job for you." And it was like a horse stud farm. I've never worked on a farm in my life. Never mind the horses. So he got a job for me there. And this is kind of like Kiwi as it goes. He's like, "Oh, you got a job interview for it." I was like, "All right, sweet. I'll go to the job interview." I don't know what they're going to interview me about. Literally walked down the drive. they said, "Oh, how's it going, mate?" And this guy Mark was like, "Oh, his guy Mike." So said hello, and he's like, "Oh, make sure you didn't have tattoos and everything." So yeah, you got the job, and that was it. Popped my legs and walked back. So I just couldn't believe how relaxed everything was over here. Even today, I think it does dry up the wall a bit when you need something done a bit more urgently. And she'll be right, eh? Let's get it done at some point in the next 20 minutes. So yeah, no, it's just unbelievably chilled out over here. And even then, even training wise, I think I've been fortunate. Howtap's been a very strong club for the last few seasons. The first 2 seasons we won, but club training is honestly the most horizontal experience. Like, I think pre-season we run heaps, but yeah, we just run heaps and then end up having beers afterwards. And then even during season, our Thursdays like little team run, 15 on 15, half an hour lineouts, nothing live, no contact at training, and then done, chips and ham. Then have some food afterwards and go home from there and play at the weekend, real physical rugby, and roll up again on Thursday. So yeah, it's great.
And is that a deliberate ploy to make it a bit more player-led, or is that just how it goes?
I think at Howtap it's probably different because we've got very, very knowledgeable players within Howtap, so it can be very player-led. But just kind of, I think it's kind of like a Kiwi thing. It's just kind of rock up, throw the ball around, touch for a warm-up, then go into units. And yeah, it's all very much just kind of attack, and maybe a bit of defensive structure stuff, but not too much. And then just kind of, everyone says up, like honestly, the most used phrase over here is play heads up rugby. So play the structure, and then if it gets to broken play, just go for it, like back yourself. Even at NPC level, like we have a structure to play to, but again, if we make a line break, literally structure goes flying out the nearest window, gets like trampled on, and everyone starts running at holes, and you just hope you find a hole and not somebody to run at. So yeah, no, it's pretty cool like that, to be honest. And that's probably rugby-wise the biggest shift over here. Is just kind of play what's in fun, don't bother too much about it, and see what comes of it.
And some of that comes from the Kiwi culture that they've been playing in their bare feet since they were 5 years old, and they're used to playing with the ball. Are there things that you look at and you think, why are we not doing that in Scotland or the UK?
Yeah, 100%. I think kids over here grow up with a rugby ball, so they're a lot more kind of naturally attuned to it. But I think at the same time, I think New Zealand rugby is actually looking a lot at how Scottish rugby are developing coaches at the moment, and how the RFU are. I think SRU and RFU are probably ahead of where New Zealand rugby is at this time. I think I'd probably argue that the standard of coaching potential is greater within Scotland at points. Grassroots level. So, yeah, I think there's a lot to kind of learn over here with kind of the freedom of play. They can just go play. But I think just the way it's coached is potentially, it's a different problem because over here everyone's kind of played rugby, so they coach how they've played. But over there, back in Scotland, a lot of people haven't played but coached, therefore have to learn how to coach. So yeah, it's a bit of a catch-22. You've got guys with lots of experience but don't know how to coach, but you've got guys with no experience but don't know how to coach. So it's a bit of an odd kind of mix. But no, I think it's got a lot of good things right over here. I think it's still quite open and free-flowing, especially at youth level. Just kind of throw the ball around. I've coached an under 14, under 15 team here, and they just play heads-up rugby and just kind of kick it around, throw it around, and see what happens. So certainly some pretty talented athletes over here at some of the schools.
And have you seen much of the schoolboy rugby?
Yeah. Well, it's televised over here, the first 15 rugby, so that gets played around quite a bit, and they're pretty professional setups and schoolboy stuff. But I've seen a bit of it. Kind of when it's on, I'll throw it on the TV, but don't watch too much of it, to be honest.
And names of players at schoolboy, there'll be kids that are already having the finger pointed at them. They're going to be an All Black. They're going to be an All Black. How do you think they cope with that kind of pressure in somewhere like New Zealand, where that's the ultimate?
Yeah, I think there's a bit of an issue at New Zealand rugby at the moment. It's a lot of kids come out of high school slightly disillusioned, so come out of these like pretty professional programs. I'm not going to name schools actually. So they come out of schools and then they come to a club and it's like, yo, train Tuesday, Thursday, play Saturday. We'll give you a job maybe, and that's it. So they come out disillusioned, kind of lose trust in it. And the ones that do come through will join the academy, and a couple of years of the academy. And since the pro world in New Zealand's even tighter than Scotland, I'd say there's probably fewer spots, then just kind of fall away from the sport. So some come out, his club rugby, and absolutely love it for the right reasons, and some come out have a taste of it. Nah, it's not for me. Kind of move away from the sport, which is a bit of a shame. But I think I've experienced some within the Waikato environment that will go very far with the rugby. Having just come out of school, and they are unbelievably professional and good humans inside of it as well, which I reckon they'll go real far from, and are always constantly learning, even from someone from Scotland has no idea about rugby. So generally very humble blokes as well. I'm yet to meet very few twats over here. So yeah.
And do you realise your position in that you've spoken a lot about watching other people and their behaviours and their learning? Do you realise that's happening? People looking at your direction?
Yeah. At times, I think even then, it's like leadership's still like a learning thing. Like you always muck up leadership. So I think the other month, I think we ran a Bronco, and then our trainer then said we're running another Bronco straight after it. So I kind of blew up a bit at him, and I thought I was being really quiet. My little Sappuccino / moan in the background. I thought I was being really quiet to him. Saying it was a load of nonsense, and then got called in the coach's office the next morning and said, "Did you say anything about the Bronco?" I said, "Yeah." Said it to him. He says, "Yeah, because we could have heard it. We could hear it over the 22, 25 meters away." It says in the dead balls. Probably not the best look. He goes, "Nah, probably not." So even then, I think I like to think I'm doing a good job, but still I learn skill. You still make mistakes and errors because we're all human at the end of the day. So I understand kind of my role within the team, and that is a bit of leadership at the moment. So yeah, kind of think about how I'm projecting myself at times and keep my mouth shut when I need to and speaking when I need to. So but it's all learned. I think we've got quite a young leadership group this year at Waikato. We've got Aidan Johnson and Fletcher Smith as co-captains. They're both young, so they'll both make mistakes, but they've got a group around them that will support them, and they're doing a great job at the moment. Fantastic job, and not very much to fault at the moment, to be honest. But it's still a learned skill. They still have to practice it and do it to get better at it. So yeah,
I love that. I love that. It's a learned skill. There are too many people who think being a leader is just something that you're born to do. So I love hearing you say things like that. So you make it sound like you talked yourself into the Waikato development squad, which I think you're being, again, very humble. You get into the development squad. What was the next motivation?
Well, I think can come back to like that nagging bit. I think even when I was coming back from Australia or when I was at school, I wasn't getting support from the SRU for strength and conditioning. So again, CP was the academy manager at the time. I just kept emailing him pretty much every week. It was like that scene from what's that film again? The one where he escapes the prison, Shawshank Redemption, when he's sending the letters every week. I think CP got about 600 emails from me and about 600 pokes in the chest. Oh, can I get some gym support, please? Because you always get better at this, but you're not helping me. So I kept like poking him and sending emails, and eventually said, "All right, fine, you can go to the gym." So finally got added to the gym program. I was never there because I was up at school, so I got a couple of weeks there and gymmed up at school. And then even in Australia, on my way back, Bruce Frame was academy manager at this point. So again, started sending him emails every week and things just to check in. So mid Cali 20s after about 400 emails. And then even here, I kind of nagged my coach to nag Waikato to get involved with development. So kind of kept poking chest until I got involved. And then from there, it was just a case of we trained against the NPC guys, or the guys that were their extended squad or high performance guys. And again, they'd been as a squad kind of all year. So kind of thought, right, I'll just go full hammer and tongs against them at training and see what happens. So I did. And then, kind of got promoted a week later. So, just kind of went at it and kind of showed that they were wrong not to select me in the first place. So, yeah.
You've obviously got massive belief in yourself.
I think, That's an confusing everyone here. I think I've got belief in myself to some regard in terms of I believe I'm a competent rugby player. Do I believe I'm an amazing rugby player? No, but I believe I can hold my ground, and I know what my strengths are, and I know what my weaknesses are, and what I need to develop. So I think I kind of back myself to kind of become better in a way. And I think rugby is a sport where it's a bit like boxing. You've got to have a bit of an ego about you to kind of get on a pitch and kind of run straight at your opposite number and do nonsense like that. So I think I am confident in myself, but I'm not overly confident, and I know I'm not anywhere near the finished article yet, and still got a lot to work on. And kind of go from there. Even off the pitch, there's so much more I can learn from other guys around the environment. And so I believe I am confident myself, but not overly confident. I still don't believe I'm the finished article, and I believe I do have bits to work on, a lot to work on. Sorry, so yeah.
So
definitely.
do you need to be at the next level because you need to be in the environment for you to get better? So if you stayed in your comfort zone, you're only going to get as good as maybe that situation creates. So I need that next jump up because that's going to stretch me, or is that not the conscious thought?
Yeah. Probably if you said it in a real nice term, like you said there, yes. I think for me, there's like, I've still got so much done at NBC. I'm still at my depth playing. I think there's so much, even like last weekend, I was running around and kind of trying to contain my lungs because it's stupidly fast. And then, but even midway through the game, like, why on earth did I do that? So there's still like heaps to learn kind of just from playing this level. And NBC certainly stretched you enough to do that. And the caliber of players you're playing against, certainly stretched. I think last season, I think I was playing against 4 All Blacks. I think they had TJ Perinara, Artie Sevilla, Asafa Moa, and then someone else on the wing. Anyway, so it's like you've all these caliber players to play against. You're just constantly stretched. So yeah, I think for me, making the next step up would be kind of super, and I think it would allow me to stretch. And I've had taste of super over here. Did a preseason with the Hurricanes, and that was, talk about deep ends, that was like next level deep end. So I was kind of sink or swim and picked up a lot from there. And I've been lucky enough to involve Chiefs development stuff. And again, that's kind of training against Chiefs full and like the tempo of rugby. Like you get to sink or swim. If you don't swim, you sink real quick. So you're just gonna have to like learn and force yourself to learn really quick and kind of force yourself to be really uncomfortable. And that's kind of how to learn the quickest. You're kind of sitting there all comfy, then you don't really learn. But I'm certainly uncomfortable at the moment at Waikato. There's a lot of kind of competition for spaces, so you have to perform. And it's just good standard rugby and good way of playing rugby. So yeah, you have to learn. It's not something I was kind of brought up playing per se. So yeah, I'm constantly learning at the moment.
How's your attack? Has your attack got better?
Definitely has. I think if you didn't attack over here, you'd be dropped. So it's definitely gotten better, I'd say. Still nowhere near where it should be, but it's definitely developed a fair bit. I think that's kind of the way, especially Waikato, the way we want to play rugby is force you to play, force you to pass, force you to find space as opposed to running into brick walls. So yeah, it's certainly exciting rugby to play.
Having just watched the Olympics as it's finished, whenever somebody won something, the story is told to you, and there's very few people who went on that staircase of progress and then it finished at the top with a gold medal. They had to go through difficult times and they had setbacks and injury and all those things that make the story even stronger. You are now where you are in Waikato. You're going for it. There's a view probably from here to New Zealand that it's the rugby utopia and everything's easy and everything's bright and shiny and modern, but you're still working while playing at that ridiculous level of rugby.
Yeah.
Do you think people, when you're on the field, do they understand that you've also been putting in a day's work that week?
I think that's quite a cool thing about NBC is that you've got the combination of guys that come back from Super, which in Waikato is quite a few, and then you've got the humble club battlers. Like there's a few of us that work throughout the year. So I was building swimming pools and landscaping for the last 4 or 5 months. So I was in the blistering sun getting burnt to a crisp, moving like barrels of concrete around the place in the heavy kit and digging holes. And my other mate, really good mates of mine, he was working for a guy called Captain Compost. I'll give him a shout out. So he's working for a guy called Captain Compost, delivering compost around Hamilton, New Zealand. And he's a starting centre for Waikato. And you've got guys that will do all sorts. I think you look at Carl, I can't remember his last name properly, Carl Tunafasi, I think it is, that plays for North Harbour. He's an All Black now. Year before he played for the Blues, he was a bouncer for a club up in North Harbour or in Auckland. So it's like guys all here work normally before they play rugby, and even guys come up through the academy. I think of our prop now, starting for or on the bench normally for Waikato, George Dyer. He's a qualified, way to become a qualified builder. Like they've all worked before and got like kind of a life behind them before they kind of go pro. There's a few that come out of school. Don't get me wrong. It's kind of more and more common to come out of school and go straight into high performance rugby, but even guys that play in New Zealand 20s are all kind of working men or at studying or whatever, so they're all doing things out with rugby, and I think that's real cool about NPC is guys are all working, and normally it's pretty rubbish jobs that allow you to get off for 3-4 months of the year to go play rugby, then you come back to. So I think everyone appreciates it over here, and I think my boss at Line and Design, he's done it, and he was like, yeah, 100%, come work with us for a few months, you'll work hard, but if you need time off, just take time off. And they're all normally very Kiwi about it and pretty relaxed. Those who take the mick, they're pretty chilled about it. So yeah.
I love, there's so much in there. I love that phrase of, if you want something done, give it to a busy person. I always admire the people that have lots of balls up in the air, a bit like you've described there. And then that NPC level for me has always been probably the most romantic level, a bit like the districts were here, that you had international players alongside, doctors, postmen, joiners, whatever, Captain Compost. I love that. And that NPC level, when I was a kid, before Super Rugby came along, that was where you saw those All Blacks, but you also saw guys that should have been All Blacks or that ended up coming over here to do something. Yeah. Is there anybody, you're being coached by Roger Randall, who's a massive hero of mine, playing alongside Liam Messam. Is there anybody that you've met and you've thought, wow?
Where do I start? There's been a lot of people have thought that, to be honest. I think I'm a bit of a fanboy as well when it comes to rugby, so I think a guy played for Howtap as well, Luke Jacobson. He's on the bench last week for the All Blacks. So I'm good mates with his brother Mitch. Luke, he was in my first game I played in New Zealand, and honestly, most terrifying human I've seen play a game. And this team, like Bay of Plenty, is not as good as Waikato when it comes to club rugby, and he just tore through this team because he was coming back from an injury, so go play pre-season against his club team, and honestly, he was stepping guys and running 60 metres, running over them, fending them, and just absolutely smoking fellas. So he's a pretty real nice guy, but he's pretty terrifying. I think every time we're involved in a super environment, there's always a lot of guys that are under the All Blacks radar that are unbelievable rugby players, and could definitely go on the next step. And even some of the young fellas come up now. Sam Penny-Finau, our 6th last weekend for Waikato. He's 120 clip Tongan playing at 6, and he carried the ball the other week in pre-season, and it was like a Tongan ball carry of death, carrying Van straight on top of the biggest guy on the pitch. And honestly, I wasn't playing, and I was glad I wasn't playing at that point. So there's a lot of fellas coming up through New Zealand that are very good rugby players and probably getting even more intelligent as they spend more time kind of analysing the game and growing up with it, to be honest. So but there's just a whole culture around it back here. Even I'll walk through Cambridge chatting away, having a coffee, and there'll be some old fella that follows Howtap will just start talking to me about Howtap, and I'll have no idea who he is, but they just love it. And I think club rugby, even though it's not as healthy as it used to be, it's still people love their club and will do anything for the club and will talk to you, and they love every aspect about it. And even with NPC, always ask how NPC is, and that's how a lot of conversations kind of with people go around here if they know you play rugby, even just club rugby or 5th division local rugby once a year for your old fellas team, then they'll still ask you how the rugby's going and what you think of the local team and stuff. So you always have to be open to talking about rugby in some way over here.
Yeah, I love it. Now, whenever I spoke to anyone about you, some of your old folks here that knew you in Scotland, and then I was in touch with a couple of people in New Zealand, and the thing that always comes back is that you work hard, that you're a grafter, that you always give your all. I don't think that's going to change. Everything you've told us just screams that. What's the work on for the rest of this year? What's your target?
What's my target? Target is to write a pro contract somewhere. So that's my overall arching kind of goal at the moment. It's kind of all the pillars to build up towards that. So like for me, it's kind of become even more abrasive as a back rower. Probably try to steal a bit more ball. And again, just get more kind of known as an attacking player and be able to carry, and kind of proven that when I've come on so far this year. So kind of build those stats up and develop myself in that way, and kind of just wait to see what happens, really. I think you can only play, I think it's not, I've kind of probably changed my mindset a bit this year, probably just enjoy the pre-game a bit more. I suppose getting real serious, and I think it's worked wonders so far. It's like just kind of enjoy kind of the moment you're playing in, and kind of just enjoy kind of the hard bits and kind of go at it and yeah, I've loved the last 2 games playing wise. Even though I've been coming off the bench, I think come on for 30 minutes and just loved every second of it. It's kind of, yeah, you just got to enjoy what you're doing. If you don't enjoy it, then there's no point playing. It's a pretty stupid sport to play as well. If you're not enjoying it, you're getting battered every week. So I don't know why you play it not for enjoyment.
Is New Zealand home?
No comment.
Right, here's my test. Have you been to the supermarket in bare feet?
I think I did it once.
Okay, right. I'm not claiming you as a Kiwi yet. Then, when you go to the supermarket in bare feet, that's when you become a Kiwi.
Yeah, only once. I think I was with a couple of guys that went across to Manchester for their 20s year, and they were saying that they walked around to the local pools in bare feet, and I think it was kicking out time at a local school, and they were getting all sorts of fancy shouted at them because they're walking around in bare feet. I think called hobos at one point, bums. I did say that would have been considered unbelievably weird in the UK. That's what would get you locked up. That's what you get sectioned back home. You saw someone walking around in bare feet. So, yeah, no, not that Kiwi yet. Settlement.
Okay. So a pro contractor, you don't strike me as the kind of guy that's actually got. While I ask if Kiwi's home, I can't imagine you would bat an eyelid at jumping to a pro contract somewhere else. Are you happy to travel?
Yeah, happy to travel. I think I'd probably turn down somewhere Romania or Russia. I'll probably struck those off lists. As much as I've got a good rugby community, I'll probably stay away from those. But yeah, any of the big countries we're pretty open to. So I'm not someone that would say no with an opportunity. So just going to wait to see what comes up and think about whether the opportunity is right for me or not and right for my partner, and just think about whether it's the right thing for me as a person, whether it's the right fit, and kind of half it is making sure you're not. I'm a rugby player, but I'm also me as well. So making sure it's the right move, all in all, for me and my partner as well. She's quite an important part of it these days, believe it or not.
Another very mature response. Have you been on the phone to Glenn Bryce or Adam Ash in LA?
No, I haven't been, but I've followed the story quite close. There's a lot of Kiwis who are across the MLR, and I think they're definitely living the best life in LA at the moment. So no, it definitely was a cool league to join. I think, especially that Giltini's team looks a bit different.
It does look a bit different. Brycey and Ashy are pinching themselves, I think.
Yeah.
Hamilton, at the end of the pods, I asked people to finish a sentence for me, and I've not set you up for this, so I'm catching you cold. So for me, happiness is egg-shaped, but for Hamilton Burr, finish the sentence. Happiness is.
Oh. God, you really caught me cold here. No time to think about it. God, I'm not sure. Happiness is right. Where are we going with this? I would say happiness is food because I would have my dinner.
You're a growing boy. I'm pretty sure you need fed, especially if you've got all that work to do and play rugby against some of the best players on the planet. So we'll take that. We'll take that. Hamilton, I've absolutely loved speaking to you. Thank you so much for giving me some time. I feel like I know you, even though we've never met other than this. And repping the Hautapu, I should have got my Tarapa shirt on to give you a bit of stick. But the way things are going at the moment, I don't think we've got a lot to chirp at Hautapu for. Yeah. So maybe it's better just being like this. Listen, all the very best. I'm really looking forward to watching the rest of your journey. And hopefully if I make it there or you make it here, we'll be able to meet up and have a coffee or a beer at some point.
Definitely a beer.
Good man, Alan. Great to see you. All the best, fella.
All good. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Cheers. Oh, an absolute star, a very mature young man. Absolutely love speaking to him, and I've got no doubt that he's going to achieve that ambition of becoming a pro rugby player. I'm just interested to see where he ends up. He's in a great part of the world in Waikato. Look after him, New Zealand, if you're listening, and I hope to get to Hautapu at some point very, very soon. If you've enjoyed it, please make sure you tune in to Apple, Spotify or Acast for your podcast, and you can watch us on Facebook and YouTube. And please leave us a comment, leave us a review, tell your friends, and remember, be nice. My name is Bruce Aitchison, and my happiness is egg-shaped, and I look forward to hearing from you all very, very soon. All the best and stay safe.